Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 17.4.1 has been out for a few weeks, and iOS 17.5 Beta 3 has been out for a few days, but there's even more to talk about with iOS 17.5 Beta 3, as well as the overall experience of both 17.4.1 as we wait for the next update, and iOS 17.5 Beta 3. And we'll talk about your experience as well based off the YouTube community poll, where at the time of this video there's over 15,000 votes and 228 comments. I've read every single comment to just see what the overall experience is like for most people. So we'll talk about that, battery life, and some of your comments a little bit later in the video. First though, let's talk about some Apple news. The big news this past week was Apple announced the Let Loose event. This is the new iPad event, or at least that's what's expected, and if we refresh here, go to the Learn More page for the event, you can see the little Apple Pencil twirling. We know that's what this event is about, and when this event takes place, apparently there will be a follow-up with a London event as well. So what that means specifically, maybe there'll be an event in the United States as well where people will physically attend, but so far this is only looking like it's online. But it seems like there's going to be some other things going on around the same time. Also, people this week actually received an email from Apple telling them that their iPhone trade-ins were canceled despite never sending an iPhone or even using the program. This was sent out to quite a few people. I actually never saw it myself, but then later Apple sent out a follow-up email saying to disregard it, and it was sent automatically by mistake. So if you received that, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I personally didn't receive it, but I know many people did. Also, I wanted to mention TikTok, as it looks like it's going to be banned very soon in the United States. The US government passed a bill that says that they have to get rid of basically their ownership of it and sell to someone in the United States within about 9 months or so. Whether or not this actually happens, we don't know, but it is something that's moving forward. So I just thought I'd mention that if you hadn't been following it on your own. On Monday's weekly Apple News update, I actually mentioned how the FineWoven cases seem like they're going to be going away, as it doesn't seem like they're making them any longer. This was by leaker Kosutami. However, that same leaker suggested we may see one more iteration of the cases for the next season. Typically, Apple releases sort of summer season updates. We didn't get new FineWoven cases recently, but we could get some new ones, and maybe nothing for iPhone 16 models, but that's unknown at this point. Also, one other thing that's been updated this week has to do with an app. WhatsApp had a big update this week, and on X or Twitter, WhatsApp posted the other day that passkeys are rolling out now on iOS. It's a more secure and easier way to log back in with Face ID, Touch ID, or your passcode. So that's available now if you have WhatsApp. Just make sure you're updated if you're using that app. Now, as far as new features this week, I did want to share a new one that was brought to light actually by Mac Rumors that I completely forgot about. If we go into a web page here, maybe we'll just use Mac Rumors as an example. We'll go to their website, and maybe we want to go to one of the stories I mentioned already as far as the Let Loose Apple event. If I want to quote something from here and link specifically to that, all I need to do is maybe highlight this paragraph. Once you have the text highlighted that you want, tap on copy, and then at the bottom here, go to share. And then what we can do is paste that into a message or share to a message. Once we do that, it will actually bring the link along with it, sharing the specific quote above it and then the link below it. So that's a nice little feature that they shared on Mac Rumors that I actually sort of stepped over in all of the iOS 17 updates that I've seen. Now, as far as new features we can see in iOS 17.5, I wanted to recap some of them as there's actually a lot of updates in this version. So the first one is I shared with iOS 17.5 Beta 3. We do expect even more, but if we scroll down and then we go down to News, within News, we have a new option for News plus Puzzles. Under Game Center, we can now actually share Game Center within News itself when we're playing a puzzle. So if you want to use that, you can, and that's also something new within News. If we go into News Plus, give it a second to load here, and then we'll scroll down. If we scroll down, you'll see that we have puzzles, and there's a new puzzle here as well. So if we go into more puzzles, we have new quartiles puzzles. So again, within iOS 17.5. Something else that we can physically see, and that was a little stuttery there, but something else we can physically see is within books. At the top here, we'll give it a second to load. We actually have a little counter for our reading activity. So you'll see we have reading goals, and if we set a goal, it has that little activity monitor at the very top, similar to what we get with maybe activity when we're working out. Also, Podcast gets an update that I've talked about before, where we have the widget here that changes to the color of the actual podcast you're playing. So let me go ahead and play this one. Give it a second to play. There we go. And the widget itself will change to match the podcast. You can do that with just about anything. So if we go back to the library, we'll play the waveform podcast here. Again, go home. Now it's red to match that podcast. So it's a nice little update that they have with podcasts that we had in earlier betas of iOS 17.4, then they removed. Now, other things we've seen is the change in the font size of weather itself. You can see that here from 17.4.1 on the left to 17.5 on the right. Also, something else is under privacy and security. If we go into our settings here, we'll go down to privacy and security. And then if we scroll down to passkeys, we have a new icon there that wasn't there before. So basically something that they're touching up. And if we go into messages, and within messages, if we search for an emoji and type the word Jerusalem, it no longer shows a suggestion there. That's something Apple changed in this beta. Also, if we go to Spotlight Search and maybe search for the word podcast, it shows the most recent podcast that we have as well. Also, in the EU side of things, they have sideloading via the web. While I can't physically see that here, when you do have that option, you'll have new options within your settings for app installation, so you can install third-party app stores. And that was sort of a first-time ever thing that Apple did recently with this beta, where we now have a third-party app stores, even though that was introduced with iOS 17.4. Also, there's new menus for that as well, with additional information such as app information and app marketplace information. So lots of things have been updated physically. However, iOS 18 is really what Apple's focused on at this point, and there's lots of features we're waiting for. But as far as releases this week, of course, we had the iOS updates that we have that we're talking about now. We also had the Let Loose Apple event mentioned, Vision Pro updates with betas, and also later in the week, we have the Safari technology preview. If we go to download, you can see the actual version here is 193. So that was released the other day. If you want to keep up to date and use that, you can use it on macOS Ventura, Sonoma, and just learn more about it with the release notes here. As far as other releases, well, iOS 17.4.2 is something I thought we would have seen by now, but it looks like there's no really signs of it anywhere, whether that's website analytics or other web pages. Now that could change by the time you're watching this video, but so far there's been no sign of it. That means maybe next week we'll have iOS 17.5 beta 4. That's what I would expect, probably on the 30th or May 1st. Then we'll have the Apple event on May 7th, and we probably will have the RC that same day, with a final release probably on the 13th or 14th. That's typically what Apple does. However, we don't know what they're going to do with the next iPads. This update provides updates for that and hints at different things such as iPad updates, different Apple Pencils, and much more. So we're waiting to hear more information about that, but we just don't know 100% just yet. As far as iOS 18, again, Apple is hard at work at that, and we're only a couple months away, as on June 10th, we should see iOS 18 Beta 1, and then have many betas going along with iOS 17 betas as well, with a final release probably in early September before the iPhone 16. So that's what we're expecting as far as those releases, and of course we're also expecting maybe some security updates with iOS 17.5 and any other versions that are released as well. With iOS 17.5 Beta 3, Apple built this to be better, but their focal point is on something else, such as iOS 18. So a lot of bugs still remain. But right now, it's been working fine. Many people say it's smoother with less stutters. However, you may have already seen that stutter in this video. Let me turn this down and try music here. So if I play this song, just swipe home. Seems okay, nice and smooth. ProMotion is nice on this device, but there is a little bit of stuttering from time to time. Let's see if we can see that again. When I tap on it and go home, maybe a little bit of stuttering. So overall, it seems like it's a smoother experience for the most part. That's included on older devices. We'll take a look at that a little bit more during the performance part of this video. But in general, it seems better than most have actually said before with Beta 2, but also there's many more issues. In fact, I had it completely lock up this morning when I woke up. I took it off my charger, went into messages, and it was grayed out. I couldn't do anything with it. I closed the app multiple times, tried to get it to work, and I only could get it to work after a full hard reset. So volume up, volume down, press and hold the power sleep wake button, and then keep holding until it reboots. That fixed the problem. Also, standby still doesn't let you edit the screen itself. So if I bring in this Anchor charger, place it sideways here, put the phone to sleep a little bit, give it a second to go into standby. If I press and hold, I can't edit. I can swipe between things, but there's no way to actually edit the clock or any of the colors after you've edited it the first time. So as I go through, I like to use this one, but it just doesn't work. So nothing I can do to actually change it. Apple really needs to fix this, as this is a pretty repeatable, easy hopefully to solve bug. So it's something that we're seeing over and over. Also with this update, some people are saying CarPlay isn't working in specific cars at all. I haven't had an issue for myself, but it's definitely an issue for others. And also many of the actual notifications are squared off. I haven't seen that today, but it seems like it comes back every so often and then will stay squared off and then sort of round out as you swipe down. So it's definitely something I've seen over and over. Siri, though, is acting very strange. It's not working for podcast commands. Sometimes it's mispronouncing words for accessibility users. Sometimes it won't play music. It doesn't recognize it. Whether or not Apple's trying to get more information, they've done this in the past with previous versions, trying to learn more about the operating system. They could be using this beta to maybe try an AI model or something in the background. They won't say specifically, but they actually have done that in the past with their APFS file system. So maybe they're testing something out. We don't really know, but Siri definitely behaves different in this update. Of course, with iOS 17.4.1, we have the exact same wallpaper bug here. So if we swipe down, you'll see if I swipe back up, let me get rid of music here and do it again, swipe down, it will desaturate once you swipe back up. So swipe up sort of desaturates a little bit. Sometimes it's more pronounced than others, but right now it's definitely an issue for both. 17.4.1 still has issues with the camera. I forgot to mention that in previous videos, where the camera would crash sometimes when you zoom in and you're taking a video. So if we go in, we'll try it here. I haven't seen it myself, but let's zoom in. Some people are seeing it crash. Other people are saying it just doesn't work right. And there's micro stuttering all throughout. Of course, battery is a big concern for many, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Overall connectivity seems to be pretty good in general. Even if I'm on Wi-Fi or not on Wi-Fi, I've really never lost a connection whatsoever this time around. So when I'm not on Wi-Fi, it'll go to 5G, sometimes to LTE. I have thought it went to LTE more than I would expect, but I never lost connection or really had an issue. So it seems to be doing well for me, but again, that can be cell tower related as well, or carrier related. As far as the camera goes, it seems to be fine. Here's a few different photos. It seems the same as we've had for a while, and I don't think they've made any drastic improvements anywhere. So it looks like it's going to be this way for a while. Hopefully they'll fix the bugs in 17.4.1 with that. Overall performance, well, I mentioned before, for the most part, it's nice and fast. Whether that's an iPhone 11 or iPhone 15 Pro Max with ProMotion, that part seems fine with the way it ramps up and down, but sometimes it seems like it ramps up a little bit slower than previous updates. Also, if we go into things like music, again, you'll see it load. We'll go home, give it a second to load. Everything seems to load as expected. If we go into something simple like settings, you'll see they load at the same time. So using this just feels pretty good overall on most devices, according to most people, and there's really not too many issues here. As far as heat, well, my iPhone actually has no issues with heat, but I did have an issue with my iPad with heat this past week. I was outside taking some notes on my iPad, sitting at a picnic table. I was preparing for a video on Friday. It was Thursday, and I was sitting at a picnic table underneath a canopy of trees with a little bit of direct sunlight. It was about 70 degrees outside. You'll see here, I made a post about it. It was 76 degrees Fahrenheit or 24.44 degrees Celsius, and I got the overheat message on my iPad. It was so hot I could barely touch it. I didn't have my thermal camera with me, but I could barely touch this. I was using it with the Magic Keyboard. The sides were so hot I could barely touch it, and I couldn't use it at all. I had to wait for it to cool down. And that was in pretty average temperatures. So I was really surprised by that, and that was only with this beta. I haven't experienced that ever before in that sort of temperature situation, and that's the first time I've ever seen that on an iPad. As far as the overall thermals go, as far as the camera goes, let me show you that, as my phone, like I said, is running nice and cool, but the iPad I had an issue with. And you'll see on 17.5 Beta 3, we're at about 31.5 to 32 degrees Celsius. On 17.4.1, we're at about 28.5 to 29 degrees Celsius. And again, with Fahrenheit, we're at about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And on 17.4.1, we're at about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So overall, pretty good as far as the overall heat on the device with Beta 3, with the exception of the iPad for me. Now, I just finished running Geekbench, and you'll see I have 2,896 for single core, 7,157 for multi-core. If we take a look at the history, it's very similar to what we had the other day, right after installing the update. So it did go up just a little bit on single core and also a little bit on multi-core. That's what I typically expect, but not too much of a change there, and it's not too much of a change from previous updates. As long as you've got a couple hundred difference in score, it's going to behave basically the exact same. When it comes to battery life, well, my battery life hasn't been that great, actually. If we go into battery health, you'll see I'm at 99% with 168 cycles. And here's Coconut Battery if you want to see more details, but that's actually a Mac app you install outside the App Store. And this has been okay for me. The battery life, depending on the day, the first day of using it was absolutely terrible. I had to charge the phone at about 5 hours after installing the update. I could barely get through the day. So you'll see here, if we go back to Tuesday, I had 5 hours and 32 minutes of screen active time, 2 hours and 9 minutes of screen idle time, and that used 100% of the battery, and that's actually after it was plugged in. So I didn't get that much battery, at least at all. The other day, I had 2 hours and 29 minutes of screen active time and used 75% of my battery. Today, 3 hours and 3 minutes of screen active time, and I'm down to 47%. So it actually seems like it's getting better. Some people say it's phenomenal. For me, it's getting better over time, but it's just not great. Some people have said that if you turn off stolen device protection, it greatly improves battery on this update. Why that is, we don't really know, but it does seem to help if you go into your settings, then Face ID and passcode, scroll down, and you'll see stolen device protection. If you're having issues, try turning that off, see if it improves, then you can turn it back on. I would recommend leaving it on if you're in an area where you might have that issue, but if you're not, you may want to turn it off just to get some extra battery life and see if it helps. If you're wondering if you should install iOS 17.5 Beta 3, I would recommend at this point, if you're already on one of the betas, upgrade to this version, as that's sort of the point where we test that out, provide feedback to Apple so they can make it a little bit better. However, if you're on iOS 17.4.1 or older, I would probably wait until Beta 4 or the release candidate. At this point, it's fairly stable, it seems, but there's some mixed results with odd issues like I've mentioned already. So probably I would hold off until it is a little bit more refined with the next update. As far as what you had to say in the comments, let's go ahead and take a look at some of those. Arsalon2210 said iPhone 14 Pro performance is really good. There are a few things still bothering me. Wallpaper dimming bug is still there, widgets still disappear sometimes, and the iPhone heats up 2 out of 10 times when I charge it. That's actually fairly normal and it should manage its own heat. Notifications squared off bug is still there, and the keyboard is a bit slow, but the overall performance and battery life has been good so far for me on my 14 Pro. Battery health is at 98%. Apple Tech 6326 said iOS 17.5 Beta 3 has been phenomenal on battery life on my 15 Pro Max with 96% battery health. The battery is not draining at all. When I go to bed, I have about 40 to 50% left still. The only bug I have is the wallpaper dimming bug. Other than that, it feels like an RC to me. Keep up the amazing work, Aaron. Really love all your videos. Thank you. Stacy Gray said, using iOS 17.5 Beta 3 on my 14 Pro with 91% battery health, and it's been pretty good. The micro stutters I was seeing with 17.4.1 have gone. Battery life has been great. Still easily gets me through the day with plenty to spare. No heat issues at all, and solid performance in general. Jonathan Mox 2530 said iOS 17.3 Beta 3, I think you mean 17.5 Beta 3, on my iPhone 13. Personally, I think Beta 2 was much better stability-wise and battery life. Went from getting about 9 hours of screen on time per day on Beta 2 to getting about 6 hours of screen on time on Beta 3, which pretty much matched the subpar experience I was having on 17.4.1 before I updated to the beta. I've noticed more micro stutters on Beta 3, and I have a bug where I cannot receive iMessage notifications on my lock screen when in a focus mode, even if I don't have anything iMessage related blocked. Very, very frustrating update, and if I could revert back to Beta 2, I would in a heartbeat. So that's everything in iOS 17.5 Beta 3 so far. Lots of other changes in the code I didn't mention, but lots of things we could see in Beta 4 or the release candidate very soon. But again, Apple continues to focus on iOS 18, so that's where all the major features will be anyway. If you found anything else, though, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, and of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already, though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.